Hi, and welcome to step 3 of the Cadette Night Owl badge. My name is Natalie, my camp name is Poppy, and I work at Camp Othene. When I'm not working at Camp Othene, I work as an emergency medical technician or EMT on an ambulance. So I'm here today to kind of give you a little bit of insight into what it's like to be paid to be a night owl, which can be kind of exciting. So I typically work a 12-hour shift. So my shift will start at 6 p.m. and end on 6 a.m. the next day. So it is an overnight shift. So I have some questions about things that I experience and what it's like to work nights from when I typically give this interview at camp. But now we're going to do it virtually. So I will read the question and kind of give you some info. So what's it like working at nights and how does it compare to shifts during the day? So not only is the time different, right? So you're working at nights as compared to during the day, but also the types of calls you tend to get can be different. So during the day, you tend to get a lot more medical calls. So people often have heart attacks more in the morning when they first wake up or when they are like working out and being active during their day. But at night, you tend to have a lot more trauma calls. Car accidents tend to happen a lot more at night because visibility on the road is low, or people are speeding more because there's less people on the road. And also at night, sometimes people are not making the best decisions. Often drugs or alcohol can be involved, and people tend to consume those at night. And also people just aren't at work or school, so they may be riding their bikes or hanging out with their friends or swimming, things like that. And so those are all more trauma-related calls as compared to medical, and they do tend to happen more at night. Also at nights, we tend to get more of our psychiatric calls. So people who are having mental health crises who either call 911 themselves, have a family member call 911, or the police activate the medical 911 system to call us to come help someone who's having a psychiatric crisis. So that tends to happen more at night as well than during the day. I don't know a specific reason for that. It's just kind of more of what I've experienced. So what is a typical shift like? Typically, a night shift involves a lot of coffee and a lot of snacking. When I am getting ready for a shift, I will typically stay up really late the night before. So I'll stay up until 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. and then I'll kind of sleep as long as I can the next day, ideally until like 3 p.m. And then I'll wake up and get ready for work. And I get to work, at like 6 p.m., get the ambulance ready, and we kind of go out. Sometimes it can be really slow, like because everybody's asleep and nothing's happening. And other times, like I said, you can get a lot more of those trauma calls at nights, and it can be a lot more busy. But typically at night, you kind of just get used to it. It's kind of a weird way to say it. But you kind of figure out like what your body needs to stay awake. So like I said, I drink a lot of coffee, and I often, if we're not on a call, will like stand up outside the ambulance to kind of keep my like body moving and keep that energy going. People at nights, myself included, tend to snack a lot more because your whole like internal body clock is thrown off because you're working nights. Even like your diet can be affected, like your metabolism. So we tend to like snack more than have like huge regular meals because then we'd be eating all this food typically when our body wants to be asleep. So how does having a nighttime job affect other parts of your life? So like I kind of said, it definitely affects your diets. Even on days off, I tend to do more as like snacking than big meals. I also find it really hard to switch back to a normal schedule. So I work 4 days in a row and then I have 3 days off. And even on my days off, I tend to kind of be a night owl. I usually won't stay up until 6 a.m., but I'll stay up, until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. And then I will sleep in the next day. So if I'm making plans or I have errands, I try not to schedule anything before noon because I know that my body needs to sleep, and switching back and forth from night and day can be really challenging. It can definitely take a toll on your body because even if you're working nights, it's still essential to try and get the 6 to 8 hours of sleep that is recommended. So it definitely has an impact. You find yourself making friends with a lot of people who also work night shifts who have the same schedule as you. That definitely helps. So what is one of the weirdest or funniest calls you've been on? I have been on a lot of strange calls. I think one of my favorite ones that I've been on was a man. He was at a doctor's office, just kind of a little clinic, and we got a call that he was having a heart attack. So we head down and we kind of check him out, and there doesn't seem to be any huge indication that he's in distress, right? So he just says he's like feeling this pain right here, which can be common with heart attacks. It's not always like centrally on your heart, but he's not really sweaty. His oxygen levels are fine. He doesn't have really high blood pressure. He doesn't have a history of heart problems. But, we take chest pain very seriously, so we put him on the ambulance. We're kind of asking him questions. What's going on? How are you feeling? And we're driving to the hospital, and I kind of ask him, like, did you take any medicine today? He has said that he had taken some Pepto-Bismol before he went to the doctor's. So I asked him, why did you take Pepto-Bismol? That's typically for an upset stomach. And he had said for lunch he had gone to Denny's with a bunch of friends, and they had hamburgers and pancakes and milkshakes, and he had just consumed like more food than he normally eats ever, and it was like a very fun time. So I thought, okay, but I asked him if the Pepto-Bismol helped. He said, oh, kind of, sort of, but, then I started getting this chest pain and really focused on this heart attack I'm experiencing. It really freaked me out. And so we're kind of just talking more, keeping him calm, checking his vitals. We take his blood pressure again, and while we're talking, we're almost to the hospital, and he all of a sudden lets out the biggest fart that I have ever heard or smelled in my entire life. And I just kind of look at him, and he looks at me, and he says, oh, I think my heart attack's over. And I had nothing else to say. We got to the hospital, checked in with the doctor. He was not having a heart attack. He was totally fine. He was definitely experiencing pain, but that is because he just had to let out a very big fart. Sometimes that can happen. When you fart, you're releasing gas. So if you've ever felt like a stomach ache after you chug a soda, or when you eat a lot of food or drink a lot of water fast, sometimes you just need to burp or fart and let all that gas out. So my partner at work and I always refer to that call as the fart attack. And whenever I think about it, it always makes me laugh. Sometimes you kind of get those crazy calls at night. Also, something I didn't say is that people will tend to feel some sort of discomfort during the day. Maybe a heart attack or a fart attack during lunch. Or they kind of get a headache in the morning, or they, smash their finger in a door, but they kind of go throughout their day thinking, it's fine, it'll go away. And then by night, they're like, oh, this is a problem. And that's when they'll call 911 or an ambulance to come get them. So sometimes we deal with some medical things that have become bigger issues because people waited all day to call. So you never quite know what to expect during nights. But if you have any interest in working in the medical field as an EMT or a doctor or a nurse, or any sort of first responder job, you will most likely work the night shift for a little bit. It's not everybody's favorite, but everybody will start out in the night shift. So hopefully you learned something today, and take care.